everybody, it's Margo at My Favorite Quilt Store, and I'm here to talk a little bit more about the Cosmic Poppy. I had done a video when I was on a retreat that I had shot myself, and we had a hard time seeing I didn't have the camera angle 100% right, so I've had lots of questions, so I thought I'd redo some of the video just to give you the highlights and maybe do some up-close sewing so you can see a little better with contrast thread, so you can see a little better how this process happens. So we're going to make one block today. So I've got the Cosmic Poppy pattern. Before you start, you should always read through your pattern completely so that you understand what you're doing. If you didn't buy our kit, which we have kits in all different colors, if you didn't buy our kit and you have to pull your own fabric, I have another video that shows you how to pull the fabric and what I'm looking for in fabric. I use batiks a lot in this particular quilt because you can use either side, so you don't have to worry about doing the inverse of it. So if you're using fabric that's only printed on one side, you have to do half of the blocks on one side, and then you have to flip them and do them on the other side so that you have a mirror image of your fabrics, because that's how you get the flow of fabric and movement around the quilt. As you can see back here, we have this quilt that is our multicolored poppy because sometimes you go to a field and there's just all kinds of colors of poppies in the field instead of just one. So I wanted to make a really colorful one because I had a request for that. So in your pattern, you're going to find the sheet. This is the pattern pieces. Because I'm going to use the pattern pieces a lot, I go ahead and use freezer paper that you get at your local store. And we'll show you just the regular old Reynolds freezing paper, but any kind of freezer paper. So what you want to make sure it has is the waxy side here, because this is what's going to allow you to put it to your fabric, stick it down, pull it right back up, stick it down, pull it right back up. So you can make this out of cardstock if that's what you prefer to use, but I have found that this is easiest because I'm going to be using scissors to cut it because there's so many curved angles that it's much easier for me to put it on freezer paper than anything else. So I take this sheet and you lay it down on your light box and you trace over it with the shiny side down. You're going to be writing on the flat side of the freezer paper. And I find I can use one pattern to do all of the entire quilt. So if, let's say, I was doing it and I had cotton fabric that was only printed on one side, I'd do one this way, I'd flip this over, put it on my light box again, and retrace it the opposite way so that I would know that I have to do half as many of this, half of this, and half of that. If you're using batiks, you can cut them all the same direction because you can use both sides of the fabric. Or if you have a dyed fabric, you can use both sides. The other thing that I would probably do is write right and left on these so that I know which ones, so I'm making sure that I'm always doing the same amount of each of them. But we're going to use batiks here in this demonstration, so all we need is one set of these patterns. So I've drawn them with Sharpie and I put them on here. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to use my rotary cutter because I'm just going to go in between these lines. For this particular one, I'm just using the rotary cutter to cut out these pieces so that I'll be able to iron them on. And my first cut will take the additional freezer paper off the piece that we're going to be sewing. And you're going to say, oh, she missed one piece. But I had already done my one piece, the E, and so here it is already affixed to my paper and cut out because I had enough. I already had this one done. So now I've got all my pieces cut out somewhat, and I can get rid of my freezer paper piece, and I can look at what fabrics that I want to use. I will usually cut 2 or 3 fabrics with this at one particular time. If I do that, I use a long straight pin in the stack of fabric. I've really never had much more success than getting 3 layers of fabric at one particular time. So what I want to do is make sure that when I'm choosing these, the A is the center block. So you always want to have a high contrast piece for the center block. Then you want to make sure that you use dark and lights throughout this, depending upon where you want your focal point to be. And usually on a flower, it gets lighter as it moves out from the center. So normally you'd go dark, medium, light, or you could also go light, medium, dark. But you need to make sure that you have a gradation of color in this so that it doesn't all look, that you can tell that you have a movement of the flower. So let's pick out our fabrics first. So we have, and this is just scraps that I have left over from other quilt projects. So as you can see, you can use scraps, you can use yardage. I've decided that I want this as my centerpiece. So when you lay these down to put them on the fabric, I've got the grain lines marked, because if you don't use the grain lines, then you're going to get the additional stretch in your fabric, and you really don't want that. So I'm going to put A on this one, and I've got the grain lines going straight. I didn't draw them very straight, but I can tell you I've got them going straight of grain right here. So if I put this piece like this, I can tell you it's not straight of grain. But if you line up your fabric where it's across and diagonal, then you're going to have a more straight of grain piece, and it's easier to piece without much stretch. So I take this over to the iron and press it down. I'll press the other ones here. I'll bring the ironing piece over here once I pick out my fabrics. So I think what I'm going to do is have my flower go light, medium, and dark. And so these are the three fabrics I think that I'm going to use. I have some other choices here. I could go with this one, the darkest one, and then go here, and then go this one. Actually, maybe that's what I'll do. So I just play around with the fabrics till I find the three that I really like together. So I could go dark, medium, and then light on the outside. And I think that's the way I'm gonna go ahead and choose to do. I'm gonna use this one, and this one. Yeah, I like that one a little better for this. So let me get my pressing. Oh, I didn't shut my rotary cutter. Make sure you shut your rotary cutter after you use it. Bring my pressing board over. And my iron. And I am using a dry iron on this. And it doesn't have to be a really high setting at all. So here I can tell you, you can see where the grain lines are, because this is the salvage, and here's the other cut. So my grain lines go like this. So when I'm placing the fabric, I want to make sure that I find a spot that I can get my grain lines really, really well placed on. Sometimes when you're doing this, it's easier than other times, depending upon how big a piece of fabric you're using. You can use 10-inch squares also for most of this fabric. So here's my B piece. This is going to be my C piece. So let's see, this is my straight, where my salvage is. All right, so let's see. C. All right, and I try and utilize it to where I get the best amount of, the most use of my fabric, where I'm not gonna, I could cut it way down here, or I can cut it like right in through here, so that I've got the best use of my fabric, so I still have all of this fabric I can use on something else. Okay, so here's C down, and then finally we have D. Okay, so here's my straighted grain. And if you don't know where your straighted grain is, you can also pull your fabric. You can see it has more stretch this way and less stretch this way. So you can check where your straighted grain is according to your the stretch of the fabric. So we want to try and minimize our stretch, because we are doing curved piecing or improvisational curved quilting, because this is what we're going to do once we're done is square up the block so that we can have it perfect. Okay, since we're only making one block, so normally what I would do is I would cut 3 fabrics of the same thing at the same time, and then I would assort them into different ones. So what I normally do is when I've got the fabric all cut out, oh, I left my scissors over there. When I get it all cut out, I will lay different pieces and make all my blocks as I go, or set them up so that I know that I have the colorations the way I want them and that they're going to move around the flower well. So you need 4 of each one of these of the same look if you want to make the flower use all the same fabric going around. I personally like to change up some of the fabrics in them, and so I will not possibly cut all 4 of these, and then I would cut 2 and 2 at the same time instead of 3. I would cut 2 and 2 at the same time. But right now I'm just cutting 1 out. So here's my B piece. And you could use your rotary cutter, a smaller rotary cutter. I've just always found, because I'm using the freezer paper, I just like to use my scissors. And I might even cut this while I'm watching a TV show or doing so. I have something else going on in the background, so that this gives me something to do when I'm not at my sewing machine and I'm wanting to get a project ready to go. Or let's say you're at a quilting retreat and it's late at night and you don't want to concentrate that much. That's when I kind of will work on something that's like this, that I can kind of do without cutting on a line is not hard to do. So we're going to get C cut out. So then I've got E cut out already. So E is the outside piece, and I've got it on the straight of grain. So one thing I'm going to tell you that sometimes I do is that I don't bother cutting off this excess out here, because that is going to be cut off anyway when I go to square up the block. And so it's not imperative that be cut at this point in time, because what it does do is give you a little bit of extra room then to put your to square up. So I've got these pieces laid out. So here you can see I'm using the big piece here, or I could flip it to this side. So what you want to do, nope, sorry, it goes right here because this matches the little pieces have to match right here. So this is the way the first one goes. So then what you want to do is make sure your smaller piece goes this way and your larger piece goes this way. And then the second one, the larger piece goes this way and that way. And then the center goes this way. So what I'm going to do now is take off the, so I've laid out my block. I'm going to go ahead and take off all of the freezer paper. And the good news is I'm going to be able to use this freezer paper again. So I'm going to take this off and show you what the block is going to look like as I'm laying it out. So I go ahead and lay all of these out in advance before I start sewing, so that I make sure that I don't have two pieces that aren't going to work next to each other, or that will not work into the block, the same pieces right next to each other. So I'll lay out all 4 pieces of the flower so I can see what it's going to look like before I ever start sewing. I just got asked a question. The notch on this one over here is so that you can match it up to the notch on the green one. So that just gives you an indication of where you should start your seam so you make sure that these are, the notches match up. So when you go around, you have enough fabric that you're not going to run out of fabric. So you match the seams. So you can also clip, if you don't want to have that thing, you can clip a notch in it so that you can make sure that you start around the same. As you can see, I didn't make a very big notch on this side, but I know that's where the notch is right there. Okay, so the next step is going to be sewing. Now that we got this all laid out, I'm going to get everything put together, and then we're going to start with the sewing of it next. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is pin the first two pieces together. So what I've done is I've taken these and folded them in half and kind of given myself just like a little finger pinch right here with my fingernail, rub it across there so that I have some idea of where the center of that curve is. And then I do the same thing with this one. And I just match up these corners right here because you can see the curve is not exact. So you can't make it look, it's not ever going to be perfect because this is improvisational quilting. So what I will do first is match the center notch right here, where there are two little, not notch, but the little finger presses that I put in the center. And then I will go to the edge one way, and I'll make sure that I'm not pulling. I'm just making sure it's taut or not any loose pieces in there, because if you don't get it tight, put right on the edge and tight enough, it will have a pucker in it. So I'm trying to prevent puckers by putting these pins in. And you want them maybe a quarter to a half inch apart. And when you're working on this smaller section, as you can see, I'm working the fabric around on the curve, not stretching it, just moving it gently so that it's going in the direction I want it to go. And you always start from the center and work outwards. You start with your center block and work to the edge. You don't ever start at the far end and come in. You start this way. Okay, so now I'm going to painstakingly pin this one. I've got contrasting thread on my sewing machine so that you will be able to see my sewing. I would normally use a light color or matching color to sew with so that it doesn't show through when I'm ironing and quilting this piece. As you can see, I've got this just gently moving it around so that I can line it up with the piece and then pin. So you want all your fullness, oh, that pin is a little bent, let's try a different one. You want all your fullness towards the center. So this is what it's going to look like when it's all pinned. What you want to make sure of is that when you're sewing it, is that you don't get a tuck or a pucker in here. So we'll work on getting that sewn correctly, and I'm going to have to put one pin here at the end to make sure I don't get like a little flyaway at the end. Okay, that's what I call it. I don't know what it's really called, but where the fabrics don't meet up. So as you can see, we have a little fabric over here, and we came to the very end of this one. That is perfectly fine because we're going to square up this. It's going to look very wonky when you're sewing it. We're going to square it up after we finish sewing the whole block. Okay, so let's go to sew. So I've lowered my presser foot. I'm ready to sew, and I am using my 1/4 inch foot to go around the edge of this, and I'm leaving my pins in here. And as you can see, I am going very, very slow and making sure that I'm turning the fabric along the way, and that I don't get any puckers or tucks in this. And that's the hard part of sewing with pins, which a lot of people don't like to do because you could break a needle or do other things. But as long as you're going slowly and you're guiding it through your machine, you usually don't have a huge problem. You can also take them out if that's what you prefer to do. So it doesn't matter either way. So now I've got the first piece sewn. As you can see, there's no tucks. There's a little bit of bunching right there, but let's take all these pins out and see what it looks like here at the end. And like I said, I've used contrasting thread so that you could see my sewing line. I would normally not use contrasting thread. So what you want to make sure of when you come back over here is that you finger press this down like this. I wait to the very end to press the whole block because I don't want to get up. If you have an iron right at your station, you can do that, but I find it's just as easy to finger press it. Okay, so I've got the first piece done, and I'm going to pin the second piece. The big side, oh, the little thread is still attached. Put that. All right, so I want to make sure that this is, the big side is going this way, and the small side is going to this side right here. So this is the piece I'm going to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do it just like I did the last time. So I'm going to finger press, or decide where my center point is of each of the blocks and work from the center outward. Okay. So the center is right there. And as you go on and get some of these done, you're going to find that it is the edges don't match up. Again, that's fine because we're not trying to make this block perfectly sewn. We're going to square it up at the end to see what size the blocks are going to be. And here's, as the piece gets bigger, I use less and less pins for the curve because it's really more of a gentle curve and I don't need that many pins in the curve to make sure that it is smooth. Yeah, we should.
So that's what you're going to turn your block on?
Again, finger press it. If you did have a tuck or a pleat in here somewhere, you would go ahead at this point and take that off and unsew it and get it sewn back correctly before you move to the next block. This one does have the notch in it, but I still like to start from the center of the block on both of them so that I know that I have enough on each end of the piece. And it looks like those, I need to go this way just a little. We're going to match up the notches. Once you get good at these curves, if you don't feel like that you need to even pin them, that's great. But just make sure you don't stretch the fabric as you get it into place and that you're doing your sewing. Okay, now it's time to press. Okay, so normally what I would do is make sure I had all of the blocks made, and then I would press them all at one time. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that all your seam allowances go out when you're doing this, so that they all move towards the outside, towards the larger side. You don't want to push them in. So I go ahead and I've finger pressed them, so I'm hoping that that will all happen just magically as I iron this. So as I'm just pressing towards the seam of like what I've done. If you want to use a little steam at this point, it's okay, but it's your choice. So now what I do is I look at the back, and I do have one seam that got a little good here, so I might press this all the way down on the back so that I have a nice seam. But this has kept anything from bunching up or getting over. So this is what the block looks like when it's done. So after you've made all the blocks, we're going to move to the squaring up. Okay, so now we're ready to square up our second side, and I just go ahead and move all the way around the block, only cutting one side at a time. So now I've got that side cut. I'm going to come over here. I've got these two sides that I can get them squared up. And now I've got my last side. And here, you know, you still have room that if you wanted to make a change to this block, you still could. So you can see where you want to go with it. So I normally do the whole flower. I get the whole flower set and how I'm going to cut it, and then I go ahead and cut it of what my idea is. So here's my finished block. As you can see, we've cut away all the extra pieces that we didn't need, and we now have a perfect block that has the green and the purple and the center in it. So I hope you understand how to sew this block and iron it, and that we can answer all the questions that you've had. So here's one block for the quilt. This block can either be here on the quilt or here on the quilt. So when I'm going through and deciding where it's going to go, because this one has a blue on the outside and this one has the yellow on the outside. So when I'm going through and laying out the blocks, I decide where they're going to go when I start to cut them out. And as you can see, here's some extra, we don't want them to completely match because we want that fun circular motion of getting all of the, the color to move in a round circle around the flower. That's the beauty of this particular quilt. So anyway, you make all the blocks the same, and then you square them up and cut them, and you have a beautiful quilt at the end. Please watch some of our other videos on YouTube so that you can have some understanding of how to make the Cosmic Poppy quilt. Be sure and check our blog site also. See ya!